Welcome. Welcome to my home and lifestyles of the rich and undeserving.
Welcome to Horror Party Movies, friends, where we take a deep dive into our favorite horror films and make a fun game out of it. Today's episode, we'll be looking into Lars van Trier's 2009 modern cult classic, Antichrist. Antichrist follows fun-loving salesmen Richard and Larry, who are invited by their boss, Bernie, to stay for the weekend at his posh beach house. Little do they know that Bernie is the perpetrator of a fraud they've uncovered and is arranging to have them killed. When the plan backfires and Bernie is killed instead, the buddies decide not to let little death spoil their vacation.
April Fool.
April Fools. You saw the name of today's episode, so let's dive right in. April Fool's Day follows a group of college students who are celebrating their final spring break by spending the weekend at an island mansion of their wealthy classmate. After a harmless prank results in a gruesome accident along the way, the group is forced not to leave the island. But the fun and games come to a screeching halt when they realize they aren't alone and they start getting knocked off one by one. At this period in the decade, the slasher genre had reached its peak to a point where it was borderline unintentional self-parody. Producer Frank Mancuso Jr. realized this and stepped away from the Friday the 13th series after a new beginning a year prior. He was looking for something more, and he ended up finding it with a script for April Fool's Day, which was written by Beverly Hills Cop scribe Danilo Bach. Together with When a Stranger Calls director Fred Walton, the trio put together a fun and often overlooked slasher comedy with an endearing cast, a wonderful score, and great cinematography from frequent Gary Marshall collaborator Charles Minsky. I won't go into too much behind the scenes details here, since my bud Tyler Nichols already did that for us in an earlier episode. Check it out, it's good times. So what makes this a party movie? Well, for starters, the German translation is literally the party movie, so let's make a fun game out of it. But be warned, I'm going to spoil the shit out of this movie, so if you haven't seen it, go back and watch it, come back to me. And as always, I'll make a fun drink to tie along with the movie at the end of the video. But first, let's set some ground rules. Take one drink every time someone says Muffy. Whenever Chaz tells someone their fly is open. When someone says April Fools. With every prank. Don't worry, I'll point them out to you. Take 2 drinks when a Jack-in-the-Box appears. With every off-screen death, when someone screams, when Nikki falls in the well, and finish your drink at that awesome reveal. Got all that? Let's party. April Fool's Day opens with camcorder footage of some friends goofing around while waiting for a ferry to arrive.
And I fuck on the first day.
Sweet kids. Meanwhile, their friend Muffy St. John is cleaning up in the cellar of her recently inherited house where she picks up an old Jack-in-the-Box. It sends her memories back to her 10-year-old birthday party. A time when life was easier. A time when you almost shit your Huggies from this prank, which makes the other guests laugh. Back on the dock, still waiting on the ferry, we are introduced to our characters. Kit, played by Friday the 13th Part 2 final girl, Amy Still, her boyfriend Rob, Nikki and her boyfriend Chaz, and this butthead Arch, played by Thomas Wilson. Yes, he is best known as Biff in Back to the Future. But I want to just point out how hilarious of an actor he is, and he's a legit comedian. I can't help but smile every time he's on screen. Newcomer to the group is Nan, who just so happens to predict the future to praise Whoopi Goldberg's performance in a 1990 film.
Did you see her in Ghosts?
No.
Oh, she was wonderful.
The last to arrive are Muffy's cousin Skip and future car salesman Hal.
Hi, Harvey Hal Edison Jr. But please call me Hal. Only my folks call me Harv, and I just can't stand it.
Now with the cast of characters in place and ready to board the ferry, Chaz lets us all know he's the head jokester of the group.
Guy, your fly's open and your hostess Twinkie is hanging out, huh?
Look, I was 3 when this was made. Did people actually talk this way, or was it mainly just one of the guys? Tell me, Rob, in your best dog impression.
Rough.
Nailed it. Along the way, Skip and Arch play a game of Stretch, which is basically some knife-throwing game, and we get to know our characters a little more. As they approach the island, cues from the film's composer Charles Bernstein come on. Where the hell have I heard this before? Anyway, Skip and Arch have a heated conversation about the knife game when Arch throws a knife at Skip, hitting him in the stomach. As everyone freaks out and the crewmate Buck jumps in after him, Skip reveals it was all a prank. While everyone is laughing off the prank, Buck is trying to lasso the line to the dock, something he is really not good at. Not noticing the ferry coming closer, it ends up smashing his face into the dock. And whoo boy does it do a number on his face when its eyeball is hanging out of his socket.
It's a jarring moment, and one that would make one assume you are in for an absolute gore fest akin to the other Mancuso Jr. joints. But what separates this film with the others in the genre is its tameness in terms of kills. So just as a warning, if you are looking for that kind of thing, you have an insane number of other titles to choose from. That being said, keep sticking around.
Speaking of sticking around, One-Eyed Buck does the exact opposite as he is hauled off by a speedboat to the nearest hospital. Muffy meets the gang at the dock, just as Buck screams out, "It's all the kids' fault!"
Sam, what happened?
Tricks. Pranks.
Antics, hijinks, tomfoolery, shenanigans, monkey shines, hoodwinks, practical jokes. The constable then borrows Muffy's boat to get back to the mainland and instructs the rest of the group to stay put just in case something happens. Muffy is played by Deborah Foreman, who is best known for the lead role in Valley Girl opposite Nicolas Cage. According to director Fred Walton, the producers didn't think that she would be right for the role when she expressed interest in part of the film. However, she was persistent and eventually blew them all away with her audition. At the house, Muffy shows everyone around and mentions when she turns 21 in a year, it'll be the first stage of her inheritance. It has an absolutely stunning view courtesy of our friends in the north at Vancouver Island in Victoria, British Columbia, where it was filmed for over the course of 6 weeks. Chaz and Arch open the doors to the dining room where everyone has a place setting with their own matching dolls.
This is like an Agatha Christie.
Bonus round, take a drink whenever there is an Agatha Christie's and then they were none reference. When the girls prep for the fancy dinner, they all answer the quiz from a Cosmo-type magazine. It's a fun little bit written at the last minute by the director after he heard Deborah Goodrich, who plays Nikki, read a questionnaire to her co-stars while lighting a scene. He then wrote a new set of questions and had the ladies improvise.
As night begins to fall, Skip reflects on his place in the family and how bad he feels about the horrific accident.
Seriously, this score. I know I've heard it somewhere.
Anyway, dinner has arrived as the friends gather around the table, and get your drinks ready here. See? Told you. Nan is quite a fan of the whoopee.
But Muffy isn't finished with her hijinks. In a very well-written scene where the friends discuss their uncertainty of their futures after college, Muffy passes out glasses of champagne. What makes this particular scene separate itself from most slashers at the time is how developed every character is. During this brief moment, we find out about each person and how relatable they are, even by today's standards. Muffy then gives a toast about friendship when...
Womp womp. After dinner, the gang head up to their respected rooms while Hal lights up a cigar he had swiped earlier that day. He practices lines to himself to get with Muffy when he opens the closet door to see the total body count from the John Carpenter classic. Not shitting you, that's the total body count. There are more clues hidden in the room suggesting something bad had happened when Hal's cigar explodes. Next are a set of pranks involving a faucet that shoots out water, and while I wouldn't consider the next set of pranks per se, there are things set up in each room like needles, S&M gear, a painting with moving eyes, and a particularly uncool one involving a crying baby in Nan's room. Why is it uncool? Well, we'll come back to that in a little bit. When Kit and Rob get ready for bed, Rob undresses to the largest pair of tighty-whities I have ever seen and tries to turn off the lights, which happens to turn on another light. Yeah, that's a prank. While everyone is turning in for the night, Arch pops his collar to court Muffy, but is shot down. He then tries for Nikki, but she is tangled up at the moment. So he heads to his room and pops his collar for a copy of Hoo La La when the chair breaks yet again. To those drinking along to these pranks, don't worry, you'll get a break right here. Elsewhere, Skip, now drunk, stumbles into a storage shed.
Hello?
This music. I'll get it, I promise.
While searching in the dark, he is suddenly grabbed and then taken away for the majority of the film. The next morning, they find Muffy cooking in the kitchen with her hair all jacked up and acting very bizarre, but they blow it off to hang out in the backyard. Since Rob is upset about the night before when Kit announced his counselor felt that he wasn't serious enough for med school, Kit takes him to the boathouse for a little makeup session. While making out, they see Skip's body floating underneath the board. They immediately alert everyone, which makes them all check it out for themselves, leaving Nan alone with Muffy. She confronts her about the tape of the crying baby and how she had an abortion but kept it a secret, and wonders how Muffy found out about it. But of course, Muffy's confused and tells her that she has no idea what she's talking about. Down at the docks, Rob, Chaz, and Arch find Skip's fake switchblade and assumes maybe Buck had come back for revenge. Arch suggests they split up to find him, and he heads off to the woods while wearing a classic pair of dad shoes. He is swooped up by a rope and is dangling upside down as a snake strikes at him with an unseen person approaches him. Still reeling from her confrontation with Muffy, Nan goes off alone while everyone heads back to the house to call the police. However, no one can get through because, of course not. Muffy continues to act strange, even calling Arch by his wrong name, and suggests maybe this is all some elaborate prank. When the faucet's cut off, Nikki and Hal head to the well to grab some water. Hal accidentally drops the bucket in the well and is a total gentleman when he suggests ladies first and lets Nikki go down to retrieve it. She ends up falling into the well, and when Hal goes in to rescue her, they find the head of Arch as well as Nan's body. That evening, Rob gets a call from the constable who informs him that he is currently with Buck at the hospital, but tells him something that he should know about Muffy, which we don't hear. Rob lets everyone know that they will stay at the house together and they will all leave together once the constable arrives. While Kit is securing the window, she happens to find a picture in Muffy's father's study of a pair of twins. Nikki points out the obvious of how strange Muffy has been acting the whole day, even commenting on her nursing shoes she's been recently sporting. She heads up to her room to pack her things while Rob and Kit go up to the attic to look out for the constable. Chaz tries to lighten up the mood by playing creepy superhero, and no means no, homie. When she returns back to the room, she sees Chaz lying around, and this time, his fly is open. In the attic, looking out for flares, Rob tells Kit he was told no one should be left alone with Muffy, which is why everyone was to stay together. Yet for some reason, no one has stayed together. In the corner of the attic, Kit finds the dolls that were on the dinner table, now arranged in a way to signify their deaths.
Rob?
And there's that damn music again. The flare from the constable goes up, and the two head downstairs to find the dead bodies of their friends. In a panic, they flee the house and head to the docks to find only the boat, but no constable or keys. In the boat, they discover a note mentioning how Miss St. John has escaped from a mental hospital and possibly returned to her childhood home. Remembering Muffy mentioning earlier there's a spare set of keys in the house, they return, but this time they sneak in through the basement. In the basement, there's a blood trail leading to the fireplace, which has Muffy's bloodied clothes, as well as a child height measurements for Muffy and Buffy, her twin sister.
There is yet another painting with eyes looking at them, but this time, it is the severed head of Muffy. The two of them run upstairs to the kitchen to grab the boat keys when Buffy the Sister Slayer pops in and chases them with a knife. Rob ends up getting locked in the closet and Buffy continues pursuing Kit. Thinking this is the end for Kit, he backs into the living room where she sees all her friends are alive and well. As it turns out, Muffy wants to turn her childhood home into an inn with a murder mystery theme and used her friends as a dress rehearsal. The only ones behind the scheme were her uncle, who played the constable, Buck, who is a special effects artist, the ferryman, and Skip, who is actually her twin brother. To be quite honest, this is my favorite slasher movie twist besides Sleepaway Camp. Sure, it's understandable some viewers out there will feel cheated with the lack of gore or the fact the rug got swept out from their feet. That's what separates this movie from all the others. There are thousands of slasher movies out there with your name on it if you want that fixed, but what you will find in this film are very likable characters with a twist you won't see coming unless you take in the fact the name literally tells you it's all a gag. The movie ends with one last prank on Muffy, and a final shot of the Jack-in-the-Box winking at us. Wait a minute. Has this been staring at me the entire time? The shrine music in The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Man, I'm good. Let's make some drinks. And to follow up April Fool's Day with a perfect pairing of a double feature, I recommend Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from 2022. And that's it! April Fool's Day came out March 27th, 1986, to decent numbers. It ended up having a remake in the mid-2000s, but we don't have to talk about that here. What other movies would you like us to take on? Leave us a suggestion in the comments and we'll take a look at it. Until next time, have a good one.
Got all that?